Second Cup is brought to you by Roswell Park Comprehensive Care Center.
Hi, everyone. Good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock on the start of a Tuesday. Glad you're with us for Second Cup in our downstairs studio once again with a special guest here with us this morning, Republican candidate for mayor, James Gardner. We're so glad you're with us. Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you here with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So throughout our conversation, the people watch the show, we call them cuppies, right? Second Cup, cuppies. So cuppies, feel free to chime in. Please ask any questions that you want to ask James as we continue this conversation.
And look, this is City of Buffalo focus, but what happens in the City of Buffalo is so important to all of us here in Western New York.
Right.
You might live in Amherst, you might live in Hamburg, but how many of us come in from outside of the City of Buffalo thinking, okay, what am I going to deal with when I walk into downtown Buffalo or when I go see a show at Shays or whatever? So it really does impact all of Western New York.
Yep.
So why don't we just get right to it? Mr. Gardner, I guess the first question here for a general purpose, tell us about yourself. Who are you? You're the Republican. I mean, this is the easiest question in the entire world, but like at any job interview, tell us about yourself.
Often at times it's the easiest, but also the hardest.
Right.
So I grew up in Buffalo. I've lived here my whole life. I still live here today with my 3 children, my wife, and the dog. The dog is the only one that acknowledges my existence these days because I've been on the campaign trail so much. But I am a lawyer. I graduated from American University in Washington, went to law school at the University of Florida. And what I found is that whether I was in DC or Florida, thinking that, I was going to do as so many have done, which is find a warmer climate, a little more sunshine. I really was always drawn back to Buffalo. And after I graduated law school, moved back here. Got involved actually in the charter school movement. That's how I initially came back, was sort of helping area charter schools because at the time, the governor and the legislature had been trying to sort of cut charter school funding for those schools. So, and then I subsequently got hired to the DA's office where I was for 7 years, then moved on to become a law clerk to a county court judge. So I had for another 7 years. So really 14 years, most of my professional career has sort of been on the criminal justice side of the ledger. And then last year ran for district attorney, decided it was time to get out of criminal law because, you gotta change things up a little bit. Went into private practice and really thought long and hard about what my future held. And this opportunity presented itself. And I care very deeply for the city of Buffalo. I think we have tremendous challenges that are facing us. And I think it's time that the city really get taken in a new direction. And they need new leadership in order to get that done. And looking at the candidates who had announced, I knew that I had a place because as somebody who comes not from a political organization or political machine, sort of an outsider, I think that's exactly what Buffalo needs. Because in my conversations with residents all across the city, you see just sort of a general frustration. It cuts across party lines. It has nothing to do with party identification. It goes to frustration with just how things are working or not working. And that's a conversation that has been very productive. We've had a tremendous response to our message, and we're working very, very hard to push on through Election Day and change the city for the better.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit. I want to start by talking about education because
Sure.
part of your background is there, and I was kind of reading up on some of your plans.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things you mentioned is putting parents more in control over education. So can we talk about that? What you mean by that, and making parents more accountable, and how do you do that?
So really, I think for better or worse, the Buffalo public school system has an incredibly difficult job. It serves 27,000 students, many of whom I think we probably lead the nation, if not, or we're the top 3 in childhood poverty as a city. It's an incredibly challenging environment. But the harsh truth is that one of the greatest drivers of outmigration from the city of Buffalo is our education system. So many people, and I'm sure we're all, we probably know people in our own lives who would love to live in the city, would love to stay here, grew up here, moved here when they were young, but when the time came to start a family, felt the pressure to move to a school district that they thought would better serve their children. So that is a reality that we have to acknowledge. And part of where I come in on the education front is I want to be in favor and support all high-performing schools. In my experience, parents don't care whether or not their kids, what the label is, whether it's a public school, a public charter school, a trade school, a religious school, Catholic school, or private school. What they want is they want their kid to be safe.
Right.
They want their kids to learn something and be engaged. And if you provide parents that option, a wide array of options, you have a much better shot at keeping those parents in the city of Buffalo, which is what we desperately need. We need to hold on to the young people, the young families in particular, to help grow the city.
So Joyce is saying we need someone who's going to help funding in schools, clean them up, and clean our neighborhoods, especially on the east side. And I want to just kind of parse out part of her comment, because realistically, the mayor doesn't control what happens in the city's school district. They are completely two different entities, despite being in the same building.
Mm-hmm.
Do you support that, or do you want to change that?
Look, I think my role as mayor I will be afforded a platform to really advocate for the kind of change that we need to see across the educational spectrum. Let's look at it this way. The Buffalo public school system has a budget that is twice the size of the city's, $1.3 billion. Now, if you go under the New York State Education Department's website, they sort of break down that funding. And their own stats show that it's about $34,000 per pupil in the city of Buffalo, that per pupil funding, $34,000 per kid. Now, if you dig a little deeper, you find that just about half, or maybe even less than half of that funding actually goes into the classroom. So you're talking about a huge pot of money per pupil, and less than half of that actually makes it into the classroom, which is where I think, as mayor and as a parent, you would expect it to be. That's where you want the dollars to be.
Because it's going to,
whether it's overhead costs, central administration, all this other stuff. Government, especially in Buffalo, whether it's the public school system or City Hall itself, they've become employment programs, not service delivery programs. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to that ethic of making sure that funding follows the student right into the classroom.
And what about special education right now? Joyce also bringing this up. This is a huge deal, especially in Buffalo public schools. I guess there's a lot of concern about funding for special education, knowing what's going on in the federal government right now. How do you help students with an IEP or in special education? What is your view on making sure that that money stays and helps these children integrate, make sure that they have a combined classroom, and to continue learning in the future?
Look, and this is part of, as we alluded to earlier, obviously the Buffalo public school system is separate from the mayor's office. Right. So there is a limit to the things that I can control. But I will say, this is part of what makes the Buffalo public school system. They have a very challenging job. Those children, and I think, to the extent that they try to preserve the IEPs and make sure that kids have, on a whole spectrum of whether they need services and the level of services that they need. That's something that they need to continue doing. They need to continue to provide for those children at a high level, because that's how, again, we're going to keep those parents in the city of Buffalo.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have another education question?
No, I was going to move on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we need to switch because we only have so much time. So, when we talk about, we have these separate budgets. So the budget you would be in charge of, or be the biggest part of it is, the city's budget. And we know right now there's a deficit.
We don't know how big, but we know there will be one.
Well, I mean, it's like at least $40 million.
That's correct.
And you were thinking maybe $50 million from what I've been reading.
Sure. I mean, that is the problem. We won't really know how big the deficit is going to be until we get the audited numbers from the fiscal year that closed in June. So it's kind of a guessing game. We're all sort of we're sort of guessing about how big it's going to be. You're right. It could be anywhere between $40 up to $70 million. No one knows until we get those numbers.
So with knowing that we have such a budget shortfall, what is one thing, what are two things that you would cut right off the bat?
Sure. So what's important to realize is over the past 2 fiscal years that we actually have audited numbers for. So from the fiscal year that closed in 24 and the fiscal year that closed in 23, city expenses rose 30%. 30%. And everybody in that building knew that the money was running out. Everybody understood that we were going to find this budget shortfall. And I think if you live in the city of Buffalo, you know that the level of service that you've received hasn't experienced a commensurate rise, right? It's been business as usual or worse, frankly. So there is the first thing that we need to do, just as any business or any family, when your income doesn't match your expenses, you have to first address your expenses. And that's the first place I'm going to start. It's called what I call right-sizing the government. We have to, and it means going after where some of that most explosive growth in those expenses have been, which is patronage positions that have grown 16% over the past 2 years.
So what would you actually cut? Are there services that you would cut? Are there positions that you would cut? Is there overtime you would cut?
So the way I'm approaching this is I'm using the budget from the 2022 budget as sort of a guidepost. Mm-hmm. That was 3 years ago. Wasn't a lifetime ago. City was functioning. That's sort of the bedrock funding level that I'm looking at as sort of a North Star. You know, we're gonna have to look at every department. The mayor's office alone, if you go through the budget as I have, there's at least $2 million that can be cut from there. I don't need police protection round the clock. I don't need a police officer sitting outside my office in City Hall. Those are luxuries that, frankly, as a city, we can no longer afford. And I'm going to challenge the Common Council to make the same economies. Before we begin to ask another nickel from city residents in terms of taxes, we have to make sure that we are addressing our expenses first. So it's going through every department and making sure that we don't have a sort of a bloated patronage class of people who've been there and they have a city job but really aren't contributing to what I consider the core function of the city. And those are the services that we see: police, fire, garbage, snowplows, the stuff that really the people expect the city to be able to function, to provide in order for the city to function. And that's the city's core mission. That's what I'm going to focus on. And if it falls out of that core function, we have to consider it sort of a luxury that we can no longer afford.
So you'd fire them?
I think there has to be. It's not necessarily about firing them. It's about making sure that our resources match where our needs are. And I'll give you an example. If you go over to the Broadway barns, they'll tell you, which is where the snow plows and the garbage trucks are, they will tell you that one of the reasons why we can't dispatch as many snow plows as we need in the city is because we don't have the mechanics to work on them. Mm-hmm. And they've been asking for them, pleading for them for years. That's an area where it makes sense to invest in staff, because every time those snow plows go out, they break.
Sure.
And if you can't, and if they're broken, that's one truck that's off the street and isn't doing its job. So it's about resource allocation, making sure that we have the people and the equipment where we need them.
So I want to bring in Anita's question, because you mentioned that 30% rise. She wants to know where it came from. Was it salary increases, or is it these luxuries, like you're saying, that maybe have been added? Where is that discrepancy there, that rise?
It has been a lot of hiring. And I think if we remember back to the COVID years, the city, as a lot of government agencies, got unrestricted federal funds from the federal government. And the city got $330 million in funding. And what did they do? They plugged the budget holes with them, and they hired a lot of people. And it's understandable why that's how Buffalo has run for far too long. It's easy to just hire people, and that's how you're going to stay in office. And frankly, we can no longer afford to operate that way. And the other big thing is you're looking at legacy costs that are killing the city in terms of healthcare costs, pension costs, and we're not getting any help from New York State in order to offset those.
So would you end pensions?
Oh no, you can't. I mean, you can't end pensions. But what you can do is, and those are people who worked hard for the city and did. They perform their services, and I think they're constitutionally protected anyway. But what I can do is I can go to Albany and say, look, all of our costs are going up, none of which we can control in terms of retirement, pension. We need more direct funding from New York State. And I think when we address the expense side of our ledger right now, if we show New York State, we show Albany that we're serious about managing our own affairs, that we're using the money that they give us and our tax dollars responsibly, they're going to be more inclined to give us more money. We're going to look like a better investment.
So let me just ask you, I mean, play the devil's advocate here, and this is a very pointed question, obviously. Sean Ryan has been in office in Albany for a number of years. Do you feel he is responsible in that aspect for not providing money like that for the city of Buffalo?
Absolutely. He's been in office for 15 years. You know, I mean, he's voted to send billions of dollars to New York City. Billions of dollars to New York City. We have a $60 million budget deficit. I mean, that is one of the great failures and frustrations I think that voters should have, is that you look at what our local delegation to Albany has done for the city of Buffalo, and you come up with nothing. What are the signature achievements that Sean Ryan has provided to the city of Buffalo? I know this past year he managed to get $1 million for the Buffalo Irish Center, which is outside of his district, but in the middle at the advent of a primary campaign. But really, what are the deliverables that he's provided? What are the hard votes that he's had to make in Albany to make Buffalo better? Where are those?
One thing I want to talk about as well is crime.
Sure.
And obviously we've seen a drop in homicides over the last year or so. We've seen crime numbers go down in the city of Buffalo. But you want to be tough on crime. You want to make Buffalo safer and not a sanctuary city. So I want to parse out these two things. And I first want to start with the sanctuary city idea. Obviously, Buffalo is not a sanctuary city.
That's right.
Would you work with the federal government? Would you work with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement as mayor to continue taking a hard look at who is in our city and who needs to be taken out and deported?
Look, I think the first thing to consider is obviously the immigration problem is a federal problem, and it's largely it's frustrated the United States for my entire life and probably long before then. What I am not in favor of at all is handcuffing law enforcement officers, whether they're local Buffalo police officers, state troopers, Erie County Sheriff's officers, or federal officers from doing their job, from following leads where it takes them. And if they're finding criminal activity in the city of Buffalo, we shouldn't be erecting walls or barriers between those departments. That does nothing to make us safer. On the immigration point itself, look, the immigration is still a problem in Buffalo and New York State. I just saw that the National Guard in New York just deployed another 200 officers to the southern border. It's still an issue. What I will say is I don't relish, I don't enjoy seeing, and I don't think anybody in Buffalo or anywhere sees the sort of the tearing apart of families that we sort of see in real time. I don't think that does anything to bring neighborhoods together. But I also recognize that if you're in this country illegally and you're committing crimes while you're here, you should be on an express train out of here. There's no tolerance. I mean, we're having a hard time providing for our own citizens in this city. We're one of the poorest cities in America. The idea that we can continue to provide services, a level of service to people who are here illegally, I think is an insult to the people who are already not getting the level of service that they need as American citizens.
So let's take a look then at the second part of that. Let's talk about crime in the city. Okay, so we know homicides are down, but you have a long history here of working in the DA's office, taking a look at crime from different angles. What do you see as the biggest criminal issues we're facing right now? And then how do you attack those?
So it's quality of life stuff. And what I mean by that is it's the car popping, the car thefts, the vandalism that we're seeing at businesses all over the city of Buffalo. It's a total lack of accountability in the criminal justice system that has sort of pervaded our city and probably New York State. So the first thing that we need to do to address it is obviously there's a visibility problem. I think the acting mayor has done the right thing, which is sort of lean into the foot patrol portion of it. We're seeing that downtown. There needs to be more of it. If we want people to come down to downtown Buffalo, whether it's for lunch, a Sabres game, hopefully come back to work and hopefully live here, they need to feel safe here. And part of the ways that you're going to make people feel safe is if they see a visible police presence. We're not talking about SWAT gear. We're talking about making sure that people have a positive interaction with law enforcement officers. They see them out there and they can immediately address things as they see it. The other thing that we have to really look at, and as I said, that's how we're gonna deal with sort of the commercial district problem, which is, up and down Elmwood Avenue, Hurdle, Broadway, areas where we have commercial centers. We need to see those officers on patrol. The other thing we need to do is, I think we're going to take a very hard look, and I'm in favor of changing the current city requirement that basically says that if a police officer is behind a stolen vehicle, they're following a car that they know is stolen, Buffalo police can't pursue them.
So okay, so I thank you very much. I just want to make sure that I'm clear here in what you're saying. If there's a stolen car, you're saying that Buffalo police should have the ability to chase them.
You got it.
What good does that do?
You apprehend the person who's driving the stolen car. That is somebody that is in possession of criminal stolen property at a minimum. If you, right now, the people who are stealing cars, the people who are popping cars, rifling through, they know, even if they get caught, they're getting right back out into circulation the next day because of the disastrous bail reform laws that my opponent, Sean Ryan, continues to support. And right now, we can't even catch them.
So let me just go ahead.
There is a safety aspect to that, though.
Sure.
So does that outweigh that safety aspect that comes from?
We have to trust officers. That's what, we have to trust the police officers to make those decisions. They are trained law enforcement officers. And that's another thing that, thank you for reminding me, is another thing that I'd love to see, and I think the department itself would love to see, is an increase in training even before people matriculate to the police academy. I'd love to see a minimum requirement of 2 years of schooling, post high school schooling, before we give officers a badge and a gun. But we train officers in the academy to pursue people in a safe way that doesn't expose people to unnecessary risk. But right now, criminals in the city of Buffalo, criminals probably statewide, realize that if they steal a car and they drive 10 miles over the speed limit, nothing's going to happen to them. And that is an unsustainable path. It's what's making it's another driver of people leaving the city, because how much are you going to take? How many times is your car going to get broken into? How many times is it going to get stolen before you say, you know what, I'm out of here? And frankly, given our situation, we cannot afford any more people picking up and moving to the suburbs or anywhere else.
I want to talk specifically about the East Side. There are many people, especially in this room, who are very in tune with what's happening over there. There are obviously many empty, vacant houses. There are many vacant properties. How do we fight that blight, number one? And number two, how do we increase services for people on the East Side, especially after what happened on May 14th?
Sure. So the first question is on blight. And the city code and charter already has a definition for public nuisance. The way it's defined right now is sort of drug houses and places that are that are constantly having parties or out of control behavior. I want to add blight to that definition. There is no difference in my mind between a house that is peddling drugs in a neighborhood and a house that is completely open, vacant, windows smashed out. I was just at one yesterday on LaSalle Avenue in the city of Buffalo. It's a disgrace. It's a lovely block of homes that are well maintained, a perfectly intact neighborhood. And these neighbors are forced to live next to what is one of the worst pieces of property I've seen. And it's a haven for criminal activity and all kinds of terrible things that could occur in that house. Not to mention, I mean, it's an awful living situation. So what I would do as mayor is I would work with the Common Council, make sure we add blight as a public nuisance, and then I'm coming with a city board. We're boarding up that house. I'm throwing an order to show cause on that board, on that house, and that property owner is going to have to appear in court and answer for it. And if they can't bring that house into compliance, we're going to take the house through the in rem foreclosure process, which the city hasn't done in years. I mean, the other piece of this is the city already has a lot of these tools at its disposal. They've fined people millions of dollars, and the city has done nothing to collect on them. They have the tools. They have the ability. If you don't pay your housing fines, it's supposed to go onto your tax bill. And if you don't pay them, it's an unpaid tax bill, and the city can foreclose on your house. It's not happening now. It needs to start, and it will when I'm mayor.
Anita says this is radical Republican action. Do you feel that this is radical?
It's a law that's already on the books. It's a law that's already there. It was passed by Democrats. This is 60 years of Democratic one-party control. This is a change to the code that was proposed by Democrats, passed by Democrats, and it's supposed to be enforced by Democrats, and it isn't. It has nothing to do with party politics. It has to do with good city government, and right now, city residents aren't getting it.
We have 1 minute until Aaron's going to come in and do weather. So I do just want to hit on something that I think is something that impacts so many people living in the city. Well, everybody really. Taxes.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in office, or if you're elected to office, would you raise taxes? I know we've talked about cuts that has to happen, but we have this huge deficit we know that we might be facing here. What do we do as far as property taxes?
Sure. So here's why I think it's the absolute last thing that we should do. It's the last bow in the quiver that I would pull, and here's why. Right now, the city of Buffalo collects altogether from businesses and residents $180 million in taxes, okay? And right off the bat, the city sends $70 million of that to the Buffalo Public Schools.
Are they going to be done?
So you're talking about a net of $110 million. If you add up the costs of healthcare for current and retired employees and our pension liability, you get $162 million.
Stand by 1 second.
Our property, okay.
All right, good morning, everyone. We're looking at traffic right now. Here's a look at the 290 going eastbound. Kind of slow by the Blue Water Tower. Had a lot of congestion along the 290 eastbound earlier. Things have thinned out quite a bit. Have an accident on the 90 westbound exit 52A ramp, but things are getting through that with no problems as well. See the clouds starting to increase in front of a warm front that's heading toward us. That'll bring us some rainfall close to 11 a.m. So it's dry right now, but that'll be changing. You see the clouds on the increase with some showers popping up. Around 11 o'clock lunchtime, we have that rain rolling through. Partly sunny skies later today with temperatures up near 60 degrees. But right now, it is cool outside. 44 with sunshine, winds out of the southeast at 8 miles per hour. 44 in Niagara Falls, 43 in Batavia, 30s for Bradford and Olean. Your hourly forecast for today, we're in the low 50s at 10 a.m. with clouds on the increase, showers around noontime, and then partly sunny skies, highs near 60 degrees this afternoon. Hour by hour forecast, different model, same results, showing the showers coming in around 11 a.m. And then tonight, cold front comes through, brings us all some rainfall. Then we watch the rain come in off of Lake Erie. Lake effect rain expected for your Wednesday through Wednesday night. Then the showers will shift southward as we head into Thursday. As far as rain totals are concerned, pretty impressive amounts of rainfall by Wednesday evening. We're talking about 1 to 2 inches of rain from Buffalo toward Dunkirk, with some more Wednesday night into early Thursday. Lunchtime showers followed by sunny breaks. Your high today near 60 degrees. Tonight, overnight lows will be in the mid-40s with lake effect rain developing. It is a soggy day on Wednesday with highs in the upper 40s. Showers on Thursday, especially south of Buffalo, near 50 for Thursday and Friday. Low 50s Saturday, mid-50s on Sunday. A few showers in the morning, otherwise mostly cloudy skies. Monday, partly cloudy with a high temperature of 57 degrees.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
Marguerite, we knew you would be mad, and we were actually talking about you in the newsroom before. We said, Marguerite's not going to love this conversation at all, but it's super important to continue hearing from our Republican candidate for mayor, James Gardner. So I want you to finish your thought, especially when it comes to taxes.
Sure. So as I was saying, the city only nets $110 million. And if you add up the costs of our legacy costs, pension, and current healthcare for our current and former employees, you get $162 million. Our property taxes aren't even covering those costs. So, and in order to do it, you'd have to raise taxes 30%, which no one would do, because if you did, everybody in the city of Buffalo would leave, as you should. That's insane, because you're not getting any benefit from it. So the ability to raise the thought that you can tax your way out of this problem is a non-starter. It erodes one of Buffalo's few remaining comparative advantages here, which is it's still a relatively low tax market. That is going to help us in terms of affordability for people who need to own their own homes. We need to build more homes. All of that will, if you start jacking up the prices, you're going to do two things. One, you're going to make that home ownership less affordable, and you're going to drive people who are currently living here away. So that is not where I'm going to start by any stretch of the imagination. It is, we have to control our costs. We have to bring those down. We have to make and when we do that, when we show New York State that we're in a position of having our fiscal house in order, we can go to them and say, look, the direct funding that you've given us, which has remained flat for largely all of this, thanks to Senator Sean Ryan. We haven't had any increases, even though inflation and all of our costs have gone up. We need more money, but we're going to be good stewards of it because of what we've done here. This is how we're going to do it. That's a compelling argument to help us get out of this mess.
I want to point out that we did invite Sean Ryan on the show, and we've invited Michael Gaynor as well. Michael Gaynor will be appearing later this week. We have not heard from Sean Ryan's campaign whatsoever.
Can't say I'm surprised.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. In a deep blue city, do you think you have a shot at actually winning this race?
Because these issues are not Republican or Democrat. These are not national issues. This is stuff that people see. This is the stuff that people see every day. It's who's going to pick up your garbage, who's going to clean your streets, who's going to plow your roads. And right now, every resident in the city of Buffalo, whether they're Republican, Democrat, conservative, working families, everyone acknowledges that right now the city isn't working the way it should. We're not getting the benefit of the bargain here as residents, and things need to change. My whole pitch is they've had 60 years to do it. They've had 60 years of one-party rule, of Democrat-controlled city government, and what's happened? We've lost half our population, and we've become went from one of the wealthiest cities in America to one of the poorest. Give me 4 years. Give me 4 years to turn it around. Give me 4 years to do the things that I know I can do that will make this city safer and better and easier to live in. And if I don't do it, vote me out. Believe me, there will be no shortage of people running against me in 4 years when I win this. That's the message, and it is resonating with residents all over the city because they know what we all know. Enough is enough. You can't keep, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And unfortunately, in New York City, in New York State politics, and in Buffalo politics in particular, that's what has been happening. They have a true choice this year. The differences could not be starker. So the voters are going to have the option, and believe you me, the feedback we're getting on the ground is that people are going to take it.
I'm going to ask just one more question, if you don't mind to follow up. Okay, so in the city of Buffalo, we have a lot of blue-collar work. It is a blue-collared city. We know police, fire, city workers make up such a strong part of that city. And, full transparency, I'm married to a firefighter. But I think there are a lot of those people in the city and their families who might hear cuts, 30% of cut, and get concerned for jobs.
Sure. And let me address that right away. So what I'm talking about in terms of right sizing, and this is what I said earlier, is you've got to start at the patronage level. What we cannot do is we cannot cut the essential services that residents expect for the exact reason that you're describing. As soon as people don't have confidence that the police won't come when they're called, as soon as they don't have confidence that the fire department won't show when they're called, or that the fire truck's going to break down, or something's going to happen, they're going to leave. They're going to go to some other. They're going to go to some other town or village or wherever else. So we're going to focus on, when we're right sizing, we're going to focus on the patronage positions almost exclusively, and we can make a lot of cuts and savings there. But here's the other thing: what I have committed to every city worker, every union protected employee, every civil servant, is I want to work with you. The savings that we need to make through the fire department, through the police department, through the local unions that represent workers in City Hall, is I want to sit down with your unions and I want to negotiate a contract that's fair for the city in terms of controlling costs and fair for the workers. Because what we can't afford, and what my opponent has proposed, is a control board.
Right, that's a big topic of conversation.
It is a bad deal for city residents, and it's a horrible deal for city workers. Now, when I was in the DA's office, I was sort of at the tail end of this gap that existed in the Buffalo Police Department, where they had laid off a whole lot of police officers. They hadn't been able to hire any because wages were frozen. Healthcare memorandums were gone. There was so you had this situation where you had experienced people at one end and very green officers at the other. That didn't work well for city residents. It didn't do a great job of providing services. That is what we have to avoid at all costs. We cannot solve this with a control board. I want to solve it at the negotiating table when it comes to civil service protected employees.
This has been a conversation that is wide-ranging, and I'm grateful to you for actually answering the questions.
Sure. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do when you're running for mayor. You got to answer the questions.
And I think that it's apparent for a lot of our viewers as well. Kareem says he needs to come back tomorrow and talk again. He's really interesting to listen to. Let me just wrap up here, and I've got one more question for you, and I'm sorry.
No. I want the job. I love this. I mean, like, this is the way it's supposed to work.
DJ Granville works with the Erie County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff John Garcia is a Republican. There seems to have been a little bit of a cover-up, which is an understatement. If you ask a lot of people in our community about what actually happened with him, that he still has a job, that he's being paid, and that he also has his sister-in-law who never gave him a breathalyzer test, according to police documents, when he crashed into 7 cars last year. What should happen to DJ Granville?
Look, ultimately, again, he's an employee of the Erie County Sheriff's Office. So as somebody who won't have jurisdiction over him, I'm going to leave that to the sheriff to decide. But what I will say this is, what we can't have is two systems of two justice systems. One for police officers and one for everybody else. We need one system of justice. And my whole approach in matters like this is that sunshine is the best disinfectant. People make mistakes. Police officers make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes. Hopefully not to the level of this, this gravity. But everybody makes mistakes. You have to own them. You have to be open about them. You have to and people will offer you a tremendous amount of grace if you're open and say, you know what, I made a mistake. I thought this policy was going to work. It didn't. And if you're a Buffalo police officer and you get behind the wheel when you shouldn't, there's a consequence for that. What erodes people's confidence in government is when there seems to be an effort to conceal that truth. Because it's going to come out. It's going to come out. Whether it happens immediately or years later, it's going to come out, and that doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the city any better or any government office any better when people lose trust in that. So I know in this particular case, there's been a thorough investigation by the Niagara County District Attorney. It sounds as though that others have called for the Attorney General to look at it. That process is playing out. What I will commit to the residents of Buffalo, the voters of Buffalo, is that we're going to be as transparent not as we possibly can. We're going to be transparent in an era of body camera footage, of instant news. Everybody's got a camera on their phone. We're going to let residents know what happens in a situation like this as soon as we can, because this is what I've learned in the criminal justice system, is that 99.9% of all officers are doing their jobs at an extremely high level. They're here to serve their community. That's what they're interested in. And when the public sees that, it's going to reinforce the level of trust that unfortunately lacks in a lot of communities between residents and the police department. And that's how I'll address it as mayor.
I want to thank you for coming in. Really
Absolutely.
appreciate your time.
I'll come anytime. If you want me tomorrow, I'll be here tomorrow.
We appreciate you as well, always being with us on an extended second cup.
Yes, and again, as Ed mentioned, we have Michael Gaynor coming in on Thursday, so we'll have another one of these conversations, and we'll wait.
Sorry, Marguerite.
And we'll wait and see if we hear from Sean Ryan.
Have a great day, everyone.